Do you think we still have opportunities to leverage high oil prices given the tail spinning we've been seeing in recent time, and OPEC talking about forecasting a bit of a low demand for oil in 2019?
Well, oil prices, neither here nor there. I think we've set up a sovereign wealth fund, and the reason we've set that up is to be able to create a buffer to isolate us from the volatility in oil prices. So we need to use that sovereign wealth fund. We need to put more into that. We need to create a stabilization fund within our sovereign wealth fund. All the institutions we have in Nigeria are available. The sovereign wealth fund is there with NSIA. You have the debt management office. You have the central bank. Central bank has done very well with the monetary policy, but the government really needs to sit back and re-engineer its national economic recovery growth plan and focus on how they can achieve some level of fiscal discipline. So the problem in this economy now is the fact that we have a fiscal crisis, and that needs to be resolved for us to move forward.
Moody's also referenced the fact that we need to do a whole lot in terms of non-oil revenue generation, boost tax generation and all of that. But there's a report today saying that FIRS generated some 5 trillion naira over. How well do you think we're doing in this regard? Or you don't think there's an improvement?
Well, there's an improvement, but it's relative, if you see what I'm saying. I mean, if you take a look at the growth for third quarter, the third quarter growth was actually propelled by the non-oil sector, which, you know, it's quite encouraging. But if you cannot grow, again, you must also know that in anything you're doing, you must have your key performance indicators. If you're talking about growth in Nigeria, you have to first of all grow your economy at over 3%, maybe at 5% before you get a pass mark. If the economy is not growing at 5%, you don't have a pass mark. But yes, we can see some results. It's like we can begin to see signs that at least non-oil revenues are improving. And if you take a look at even the FIRS, yes, they've set themselves some very quite ambitious targets. And they've actually been increasing in terms of bringing more people into the tax net and getting a lot of things. So the trajectory is positive. So it's inching up gradually. But again, in terms of the issues in the economy, we're not yet there. But I think they have a trajectory which is positive and upwards, and I think we just need to push them to continue in that direction.
So let's look at our budget for 2019, given the assumptions that we have in it and the level at which we have oil right now. How do we square this up, and how sustainable do you think that is for us?
Well, again, the challenge in Nigeria is not the budget. It's the policies that go around those budgets and implementation. As you can see, the budget was not passed till very late this year, which of course will affect implementation. The government also is financing deficits at record levels, which is what is driving the debt to record levels or doubling of the debt. So the government really has to take a look at its budgeting, and they need to be able to reduce the deficit factors within that budget. The size of the government, of course, itself, the recurrent expenditure element of the budget is very high. And I think that is really the part of the budget that is unsustainable. And that is really where we need to address. So in terms of looking at the budget, there's a lot of restructuring that we need to do internally. And more importantly, outside the budget, it's important that we have a sound monetary policy and also back it up with strong fiscal policy. And not only that, but we also need to take a look at our trade and investment policies. Within these 4 axes of monetary policy, fiscal policy, trade policy, and investment policy, within those 4 pillars, if the government can get it right, then we can sync these 4 pillars and to be able to achieve the sort of economic growth that is meaningful to Nigerians. Because right now we have 100 million people in poverty, and we have youth unemployment at close to between 35 and 40%. That really is the challenge of the economy right now. The issues are social, and we need to address those social issues before it becomes a crisis.
So Moody's is saying our current accounts is meant to remain surplus. We've seen a whole FPI, however, drop into, I think, 5 quarters low now, given the reports that the NBS released yesterday. What is your own projection? You think will remain that way in terms of current accounts, given the fact that we are in an election year right now, and we see a lot of investors, you know, making flights from the country?
Well, it's unfortunate that one of the biggest problems of Nigeria is that we have not been able to manage our election cycles with our economy. The foreign investors always pull out before elections, wait to see what happens, and then always comes back. It distorts a lot of things, including our foreign exchange management, our interest rate structure is also affected by all this. So we have to try and find a way to go beyond that, to let people understand that policy stability, which is what I talked about, will be consistent. If you do not have consistency, or people fear that consistency in policy, then you will begin to see this. But I think the foreign investors themselves are used to it. They take the break, they come out, and then once they see some clarity, they come back again. So, I mean, what is important is that they always come back. And I think that as long as that's why that stable, medium-term outlook of our economy that Moody's gives is very important, because the medium-term outlook is quite stable. So there's still confidence on the medium term, and I think that is really what is sustaining our economy, that these guys always come back. But what is important is that not only do we want the portfolio investor, but the foreign direct investor that is long-term oriented is really the one we need to structure our economy to attract, because that is what will create jobs and lift us out of poverty.
We appreciate your time, sir. Mr. Tilewa Adebajo, CEO, CFG Advisory. This will be the very first handshake I'm having in the studio. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it so much.
Compliments of the season.
Absolutely. Same. We wish you same. We wish you on behalf of Channels Television, actually. Back to you, Chimeze.
Well, thank you very much, Temple. Well, Tilewa talked about the need for the government to look into the investment policies. Well, after the break, we will x-ray Nigeria's investment climate as Nigeria's total capital importation drops significantly in third quarter. Stay with us.